Hi, and welcome to episode number 45 of Life Without Cravings. Today I have a guest with me, so I'm not alone here. Her name is Nicole, and she is the former fat girl. She has a very, I should say, interesting story of how she has recovered from food addiction and how she wasn't able to lose weight at all until she overcame that. And we're gonna dig into a little bit of what has caused this for her and what she's done about that. So I'm not gonna tell you anything beforehand. I'm just gonna let her tell her story, and then we'll see what comes out of it. So welcome to the show, Nicole.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, so am I. I don't even know where to start, but let's start from the beginning, I think. Like, at
Yeah.
what age do you like recall yourself as, having an eating problem, or when do you know that this started? What was behind that? That was many questions.
Yeah. I didn't actually realize that I had a sugar problem, I guess, as seriously as I did until recent. But I would say my emotional eating and my whole relationship with food, if you will, started when I was about 11. So I've always loved sweets. I had a wicked sweet tooth. I grew up in the 80s, so we had like the penny candy, like the Swedish fish and all those things. We had an ice cream store, a little parlor, the old school parlor where you go out to the window and order the ice cream cone, literally at the corner walking distance. So I had all of the things within walking distance, but it didn't really affect me that much because again, I grew up in the 80s, so we were all outside playing. We didn't, from the time we came home from school until dinner, until it was dark out. So like we weren't like kids now where they're just behind a screen. We didn't have internet really at the time and all that. So we were outside. So I think I was so active playing sports and doing that that I really didn't feel any effects from it, if you will.
Yep.
Um, but when I was 11, my brother passed away. And he was younger. He was 9 at the time. And my parents dealt with it their own way. They just lost a child and I lost a brother. So they were grieving, we were all grieving, but because they were grieving, I had really no one to show me how to grieve at that age. So I didn't know how to handle it. So I guess that's when I would say it started, is I would just eat more of those types of foods because it just made me feel good. It, I guess, numbed the pain. I couldn't drink. I was 11, so I ate candy and ate all the things, and I took that as just a normal part of my life. I didn't think anything of it. I just enjoyed those foods and it made me feel good. And that's just what I did throughout starting then throughout my entire life. But I would say I've always enjoyed sweets and those types of foods, but I think using it in like the therapy type and grieving type way, I started when I was 11.
Yeah, and this is really interesting. So this is a typical like childhood trauma story, probably, where, and I'm thinking like in the 80s, no one
Yeah.
really knew about this. It was just like, oh, well, we'll have to deal with it. And no one would even have thought about a kid 11 years old, how they are even perceiving it. Because at the time, I mean, I was an 80s kid as well. And from what I remember, there was never any talk about, mental health for kids or anything of that sort. And if you were ever getting help with your mental health, you were looked upon as if there's something seriously wrong with you. So I don't know if
Yeah, there was
that's
this huge stigma on it. And, I joined the military when I was 21. Um, well, 21 a month after I joined the military, but during September 11th, 2001. So if you live in the United States, you remember the planes hitting the towers.
Mhm.
That's when I was supposed to go to basic training. Um, but yeah, in the middle, I was in the Air Force, the US Air Force for 14 years, and there were a couple points I wanted to go to therapy because I've always felt there was something wrong. I always felt Like I just needed to deal with this because I just knew I wasn't right. Like I knew I wasn't 100% myself or who I could be. I just knew there was something holding me back. There was something missing. So I always went back to therapy or church or whatever, but I never went to therapy because I was in the military. I had a security clearance at the time. And even 15, 20 years ago, there was still this stigma around mental health. So I was always afraid that people were going to be like, "Oh, what's wrong with you?" or I would lose my clearance or something
Mm.
crazy like that. So yeah, it wasn't then what it is now to where now it's okay to go to therapy or whatever. But yeah, it definitely wasn't as comfortable as it is now to talk about these things.
Yeah, just I'm gonna jump a little bit in the story here, just because you mentioned it, like you said, I always knew that there was something like missing or something that was wrong. Would you be able to kind of pinpoint how you knew this? What was that feeling, or what did you feel like was missing for you?
Yeah, it's hard to kind of nail down, but I did go to church when I was a kid. I'm not a religious being now. I don't find all that stuff, just my opinion and just where I stand on it. I'm okay with other people being religious for all the listeners out there. I'm just not
Mhm.
anymore. But I fell off that wagon, the religion wagon, after my brother died. And for whatever reason, I thought that was what was missing. I just felt it's hard to explain, like kind of empty. And I guess I'll just explain it how my therapist explained it because I did eventually go to therapy.
Yeah.
So I had a very negative outlook on life. So this is the best way I'm able to explain it. So I had a very negative outlook on life. Um, like 90% of my worldview, how I saw everything, how I saw people, how they saw me, right? How I thought people viewed me was vastly negative. So I always thought that everything was my fault. So him's having a bad day and we're usually cool and, buds and joking around. And then one day you would be like just quiet and not say anything, not even say hi. I would react in a way to where I would take that as something's wrong with me or I did something wrong. I would take the blame for it. I would think whatever's happening with you is me.
Yeah.
And then I'd start to have, anxiety attacks, depression. I would start to like just have this response to where like no one likes me or whatever. And I would just go into like this spiral, I call it. Um, so that's kind of what I meant by something wasn't right because I know that's not normal to react that way. And
Mm.
I know that I'm a very outgoing person. I'm very friendly. I put people first. So I know I'm a good person and I'm funny. I'm fun to be around, but I still had this negative outlook on myself and the world around me and how people viewed me. And at first I thought it was church. I was like, maybe I have to go back to church. And I tried the church thing and I was like, that's not it. Um, but it was therapy. It was grieving. I never properly grieved the loss of my brother because I was 11. I didn't know how. No one showed me how to deal with those emotions. So I kind of just bottled it all up and never dealt with it. So I think that just kept like coming up, and that's just how it affected me. And I guess how I dealt with it, like with food and outside of food, I just like fear of loss, I guess, or whatever you would label it. But yeah, I take all of that as I never grieved. I never dealt with this. I have this fear that all my relationships are going to end this way and everyone's going to leave and yeah, that whole thing. So that's the best way I can explain it.
Yeah, that's fine. I understand. I mean, I'm not sure how I would explain it. That's why I was asking if maybe you could. Something that hits me now is that often, like you say, that everything that other people are doing, you kind of take that onto yourself as if
Mhm.
everything was your fault. So I'm wondering, when you were 11, did you take on any of the kind of blame for your parents feeling their grief, or like not being the good enough child, or any of those kind of emotions or thoughts that
Yeah.
irrational thoughts, I want to say, that children have because they don't have the understanding that.
Yeah.
adults do. Yeah.
Yeah. Like looking back, obviously, I know we talked previously, like looking back, I understand things, but yeah, in the moment, I was freaking 11,
Yeah.
you know. I was a kid. I didn't know what was going on. I've never experienced loss in this way before. It was my first experience with it. It was my freaking brother,
Mm.
So I remember coming back from the hospital while leaving his room. And my mom doesn't remember this, but I remember this vividly. I don't know why I remember this, but I remember we went into the elevator. I don't remember if my dad was with me or with us or not, but I just remember I was standing next to my mom and I said, I wish it were me, or it should have been me, something like that. So I guess I took on that guilt, like, I would have traded places with them. And then seeing my parents grieve, I guess looking back, um, I know I didn't handle it well, like the loss of my brother. I didn't handle it
Yeah.
well at all. But I know looking back and just seeing how upset they were and how they were handling it, then I guess in a way I probably thought, I had to be the better daughter, or I had to be better than I was to make up for the loss of my brother, because that's naturally, I would imagine, like where your mind goes. You want to kind of fill that void. Um, so I guess in a way, I never thought of it that way, but I guess in a way, that's kind of what happened, but it's organic. So I don't think I thought of it because I was 11. I didn't think
Yeah.
that way. But looking back, I can see that's kind of what happened. And I felt like I had to fill that void that they were feeling, and that was now my job to do that. Um, while still not dealing with my crap.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense when I'm hearing your your take on it now. And I
Yeah.
think most people would probably react or think that way for sure. So when you started having like problems, or I want to say problems with food, when did you actually actually think that I have a problem with food? Like, because you probably didn't at 11.
I mean, no. I mean, I love food, so at the time I didn't think it was a problem. It was delicious.
Yeah.
It was a delicious problem.
Yeah.
Um, no, I could always pound like a pint of ice cream, like, my recent battle with it, which I'll get into the recent stuff. I mean, this wasn't new. It's
Yeah.
just I was so active back then. Like I was able to, I guess, work it off in a way. Because
Hmm.
again, internet wasn't what it is now. I still had a pager. We didn't even have phones yet. So like it was just the times were different, but I think it started to catch up to me. Um, as I aged. So at my heaviest, and so I was vegan from about 2017. I actually just recorded a YouTube video about this. So 2017, What the Health, the documentary What the Health came out. Um, and I saw the animals ethical, all that stuff. So I went vegan like on the spot. Like as soon as I saw that documentary, cold turkey, came upstairs, told my husband the pizza was my last meal. I was like, that's it. And 4 years I did that because I was about 180, between 170, 180 pounds at the time. So I was like, all right, let me just go vegan because vegan's healthy. If I'm vegan, I have to drop weight, right?
Yeah.
Oreos are vegan.
Yes.
Dark chocolate peanut chews, if you didn't know, those are vegan. I found all of the vegan candy because I still wanted the sugar. I still
Mm.
wanted those foods. So I gained another 20, 30 pounds on vegan.
Oh,
I was
Jesus.
200 plus pounds at my heaviest at 60 inches or 5 feet for whatever country you're in. Yeah, so I was 5 feet, like 200 plus pounds. And my wedding day in 2015, when I still wasn't my heaviest, I kept gaining, right? I saw the pictures. I knew I was heavy. I wasn't happy. I knew I had to lose weight, but I wasn't ready. I didn't correlate my weight to my emotional health at the time and the food. Like I had cognitive dissonance, whatever you want to call it. I just wasn't
Yeah.
thinking that. I need to drop weight. I saw the documentary, What the Health. I went vegan. I gained 20, 30 pounds. I was still eating junk food because I was looking for it. So I
Yeah.
was like, okay, something's not working here. I need to get my crap, can I curse? I need to get my shit
Yeah.
together. Um, so that's when I got educated and got my certification in nutrition. And that's when I started slowly decreasing the sugar, but I wasn't decreasing the carbs. So I was eating I replaced it with sweet potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
So all those sweet corn, sweet potatoes, like all the sweet things just in vegetables and not
Yeah.
candy. So I guess it would be not until I switched to low carb, um, about 7, 8 months ago now, coming up on a year, I got rid of those foods. You know, it took me 60 days to transition because I did it slowly, but I haven't been eating the sweets. So that's why I said I didn't realize how bad the problem was until recent. So I've been low carb for about 8 months now. I just got back from vacation a couple weeks ago and I started eating those foods again. Because I thought I can deal with it. I'm like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
good, dude. I'll just have a little cake. I'll have a little bit of ice cream. And I finished the pint, and all these things. And my cravings were through the roof. And I wanted nothing but to eat those foods. Like when I was low carb for those 7 months prior, I didn't think about those foods. Like I would see a commercial and I would be fine because my cravings passed. I didn't have those thoughts anymore. My hormones, everything was like normalized, like everything was great and functioning. But as soon as I reintroduced those foods, my cravings were through the roof. I'd be sitting on the
Mm-hmm.
couch and it would take everything in me to not walk to the kitchen because that's all I could think about. And that's where it clicked. I'm like, wow, sugar has more of a hold on me than I ever thought. I knew I loved it. I knew I had it every day. I had it all the time, but I didn't realize I had an actual problem with it until I didn't have those foods in a while. And then once I introduced them, it's like I couldn't get enough. I was like binge eating tendencies, I guess, that I
Mm.
didn't even know I had that much of an issue because I ate it every day. Like it was just part of my life. But
So how did
yes,
you
even
manage
if
to
you
use
eliminate,
like low carb to, I mean, you said you were doing it for 7 months. Like, what made you do it then that kind of that you
you
lost?
mean stop eating it?
Yeah.
Um, So I have good willpower. And I know we talked about this on mine. It's like you can put a bowl of cookies out on the table,
Mm-hmm.
and I literally could go without eating one. That doesn't mean I won't be thinking about it or I don't want one. I want one. Bet your damn ass I want a cookie, but not going to eat it.
Mm.
So like I think a lot of it was willpower, but at first it was willpower, but a couple months in, your cravings do go away. Like you
Yeah.
stop thinking about those foods naturally, because of the types of foods you're eating. Like I'm eating primarily like chicken and steak and stuff like that. Like my cravings just naturally went away and I felt satiated. I didn't think about those foods. I didn't need those foods. I was feeling so good. I didn't want to mess that up. And I remember how I felt before, bloated, inflammation, digestive issues, obviously the cravings and the constant thinking about sugar, always hungry, always thinking about my next meal. Like I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to go back there, but I don't know. I thought because it was so long that I can handle it on
Yeah.
vacation and I can just have one thing. I'm like, oh, it's been so long. I'm in control. And I didn't have as much as I normally would on vacation. I didn't go overboard like I normally would. So I kind of controlled it. But
Yeah.
when I got back, it was hard for me to go back to the way I was eating before. It took me like damn near 2 weeks just to get back to eating like actual low carb. It was hard for me to get back
Yeah.
to pre-vacation. But yeah, I think it was just I knew how good I felt and I knew how shitty I felt before and I didn't want to go back there. And honestly, I didn't think about it because I was never hungry. I I didn't have cravings anymore because I wasn't eating those foods. So I think they just naturally went away. It started with willpower, but I think it just
Mm-hmm.
naturally kind of normalized and went away until they
And I think
didn't.
that's such a good point that you bring up. You're like, well, I kept reminding myself of how freaking good it felt to actually eat that way. And I
Yeah.
think this is like one of the most common things that I see in my clients that kind of keep failing is that they don't manage to stay with that mindset. They don't manage to stay focused on why they want to do it. They just go to,
Yeah.
oh my God, everyone else is having ice cream and I can't have it.
Mm.
And they just get into this deprivation mode and they just see how everyone else apparently can eat that crap and they are just fine, even though we have no
Yeah.
idea how they actually feel on the inside, but
Yep.
we imagine that they're fine because they look fine on the outside.
Oh,
And
they're
we
not
just feel,
fine, dude.
no, they're not. They're definitely
No.
not. But it's what the brain tells us. And this is like the problem is the mindset. And I think, as you said, like, yeah, I think, I just got a little bit overconfident and then this happened and then you were surprised. It just
Oh
happened to
yeah,
all of
no,
us.
not a little bit confident. I was good. I was rocking and rolling. I was having
Yeah.
a good old time. But no,
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like telling someone don't open that door or don't go into
Mm.
that room. All they're going to think about is opening that
Mm.
damn door and going into that room. So
Yeah.
the second you say I can't have that, then you're going to want it even more. So I just say I don't want that. Like I don't want that because I'm going to
Yes.
feel like shit. And, you know, I don't deprive myself all the time.
Mm.
Like, if I want something, I'll have a little bit,
Yes.
as long as I can control it, because I can. I'm just saying I don't want to,
Yeah.
but I approach it as kind of like, for instance, I'm Italian. So my dad cooks like the big Christmas Eve, fish and pasta dinner, the big
Yeah.
Italian feast. I haven't decided if I'm gonna have the pasta yet, but I might have a little bit. But I go into it saying, okay, I'm gonna have this pasta. I know I'm gonna feel like shit the next day, but I'm just gonna have a little bit, go through the repercussions, and then get back on track or whatever. So it's like
Hmm.
as long as you know and you really are in control and you don't feel like you're depriving yourself or you say you can't have something, it's better to say I don't want it. So that's kind of where I've retrained my brain, is just
Yes.
saying I don't want that, not I can't have that, because it's mind trickery, reverse
Yeah.
psychology.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you so much for bringing that up because I think that is huge.
Yeah.
Getting out of the you can't ever have anything ever again, that will just send most people into a full-blown panic and then we're going to go on a
Yep.
binge. And
Yep.
also the language that you're using. I can't have it versus I don't want it. It's very,
Mhm.
very important. The brain will pick up on that, even if your rational part of the brain doesn't. Your subconscious mind or will know will know the difference, and it will either send it into panic mode or maybe just a little bit of resistance to it. But
Yeah.
still, it's like maybe that's true. Maybe I do not want it. And then if you then bring in your reason for why you don't want it, a lot of the time you can be really, really successful with like telling yourself and actually believing yourself that you don't want it, which is
Yeah, I
freaking
think we
awesome.
have like similar philosophies on that. So I work with obesity, because I was, obese, so I try to help people not be obese,
Yeah.
not be diabetic and all that. But most people are emotional eaters, like seriously,
Hmm.
because we're so high carb, high sugar. I think that everyone, I can only speak for the United States. I think pretty much damn near everyone's an emotional eater. And I always say like three simple steps. And I know you probably have different steps, but I'm like, the hardest, but the most important one is just to stop. And I always, because you mentioned rational brain, I always say that because I'm like, you want to kick back into rational thinking and just
Yeah.
stopping. It only takes a couple seconds for you to click in and for you to logically think about, are you physically hungry or emotional hungry, and go through the emotional hunger versus physical hunger checklist and whatever. But that first step is like stopping, is hard. Like I wanted ice cream and I was like, I'm talking to Pam tonight about sugar addiction. I probably shouldn't have ice cream. That's a bad idea. That was my why. So I was gonna walk my happy ass down to CVS, get ice cream because I was craving ice cream. And I was like, no, I'm talking to Pam about sugar addiction. I can't eat ice cream. That's no. So I did it. That was my why for tonight. But I had the cravings and I stopped,
Yeah.
and it took a minute or two, but literally it stopped. And I was like, no, I don't need ice cream. And I didn't. But that temptation was real. But because I stopped, I was actually able to work through the mental process and not make a knee-jerk reaction. And
Yeah.
I'm grateful I had this thing tonight because I was going to get mint chocolate chip ice cream. Just saying.
Just saying.
Just
Good
saying.
job. So I'm wondering, like you said, you have just been low carb for like 7 months before you went on that
Before I
vacation.
went on a cruise,
How
yeah.
much weight did you lose in those 7 months?
Um, so I was 200 and something pounds at 5 feet. So I think my goal was to lose about like 70, 70, 80-ish. And I
Mm-hmm.
think in total I've lost 65 since going low carb. I think I've lost about 15.
Nice.
Yeah. So I still have more to go. But I kind of fell off the wagon for a couple weeks there, so I'm getting back, but I'm on the lose train again. But yeah, I lost about 15. And I didn't
Nice.
have much to go. I lost the bulk of it before I switched to low carb, and not by, you know, watching what I ate or whatever. I literally just slashed my calories, like calories.
Yeah.
Like I was starving, and that's how I lost the bulk of the weight. Now I'm doing it in a healthy way. So
Yeah.
yeah, so far 15. I can stand to lose maybe another 10 or 15.
Yeah. Well, you'll get there. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure.
I just have to
Um,
stop eating the Ben and Jerry's.
well, yes, that's probably a good idea.
We should just have these talks every Friday night. We'll be good.
Yeah, exactly. So you did mention that eventually you actually did get help, like you went to therapy, etc. How long ago was that?
Um, geez. It was pre-pandemic, so I think in 2018.
Okay.
It was in the middle of my vegan stint, so yeah, only a few years ago.
Yeah.
It was recent. It was after my wedding. I realized, because I was looking at the wedding photos, and I was fat, and I was like, I'm not happy, but I wasn't ready to go to therapy there. I should have,
Mm-hmm.
because I failed my last, physical fitness test in the military too, not because of anything else, but my waist measurement. I failed tape.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it took me a couple years. I think 2017, 2018 is when I finally went to therapy. And that's actually when I started to, no, it was 2019, because I started to drop weight over the pandemic in 2020.
Okay.
That's when my weight loss started. So I think it was, yeah, a year. It was around a year before the pandemic, somewhere around there. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was recent.
So what do you think it was that made you feel ready to take that step?
For therapy.
Yeah.
Um, my health was going down the shitter, and I knew I had to do something. Like, I had sleep apnea, and I don't anymore, but literally because I was so fat. I had sleep apnea. I had high blood pressure. I would not be surprised if I had pre-diabetes. I never got tested, but I was clinically obese, so I was trending in that direction if I didn't already have it. But yeah, my health
Mm.
was going down the tu down the tubes, the shitter, and I just wasn't. I was always athletic, but like I wasn't moving. I just felt like crap. I felt like garbage, and I knew I needed to do something, and I couldn't lose weight, or I couldn't do anything to take care of myself until I went to therapy, because I was still battling, the mental crap.
Mm-hmm.
And that's largely why I yo-yo dieted, and I couldn't keep the weight off, because I had such a negative outlook of myself and the world around me. I just couldn't take care of myself, because I was always looking to something unhealthy, and which was food.
Yeah.
So I knew something had to give. My health was not good. So
So
I
you
went
had
to therapy.
already like made the connection that in order to actually get my physical health in shape, I need the mental help.
I needed to do something.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I needed to do something. And I knew that I never grieved. Like, I was smart enough to put two and two together. Like, I never grieved. And there was a reason why I couldn't stick with anything, or I was never 100% happy.
Mm.
Um, so I knew something had to change, or I needed to do something. So for me, it just logically made sense to go to therapy. Like, I can't put a finger on like what made me think therapy. Just logically, for me, for what I was going through and all this stuff, I just figured I'd go to therapy. I didn't think going through therapy would be as, I guess, fruitful, if you will, as it was. Like, I
Mm.
wasn't expecting me to feel like I felt afterwards. I've never felt that before. So I didn't know what to really expect. But once I ended therapy, and I felt like a completely different person. Like, I'm always positive now. If you, Pim, are having a shitty day and we're best buds and you whatever, like, I don't take that shit seriously anymore. Like, I feel like I just lightened the load, and then I was just able to focus and get the rest of my shit together, and just it all clicked in that moment. Like, I can't put a finger on it. It just clicked. As soon as I finished therapy, just my life just came together, and I was working out. I was in the middle of vegan because that's healthy, right? So like I was just in this health kick and all of that. And then, I found out vegan's not healthy because I kept gaining weight. But I was still working out and I was doing all those things and making positive changes post therapy.
That's nice. So, if you were going to pitch for therapy for someone who has some childhood trauma and especially with like any kind of addiction problem,
Yeah.
what would you say that like how does it go? What did you need to do or accept in order to be able to be receptive to the treatment?
Oh, to start going to therapy?
Or
You
during the therapy? Because
um
I mean, I don't know how it is. I haven't been to therapy myself, but I've been coaching a lot of
yeah,
people, and a lot of people can
yeah.
be very convincing, and they can tell me I'm so ready to change and I need to do this, and then there is so much resistance to actually changing anything.
Because it's hard. Like
Yeah,
I had a client who went to Overeaters Anonymous and she had binge eating tendencies and a legit sugar addiction, like a
yeah,
binging problem. And I talked to her into going to therapy like for a solid year before she ended up going. And I understood because it took me a couple years to go. Like
mm,
I knew I needed to go, but I couldn't go. And I think it's because, yeah, there's a level of vulnerability and you have to be ready to talk about whatever it is that's going on.
yeah,
For me, it was the loss of my brother. And because I never grieved and dealt with it when I was a kid, I didn't go to therapy until I was in my late 30s, and, I'm in my 40s now, but I was in my late 30s. So, I mean, from 11 to late 30s, that's a long time to be carrying that baggage. So, and I never talked about it. I just said, yes, I had a brother, hoping they would catch on to the had part. Some people, for whatever reason, don't. And they ask me how old he is. So, but I always say he died. I never went into details. I never talked about it. I just couldn't, because I never dealt with it when I was a kid. So it's still all pent up and it was still fresh and raw.
yeah,
So I think a big part of it is whatever it is that is going on, you have to be ready to be vulnerable and talk about whatever it is going on. And you can't make someone ready. Like, people couldn't make me ready. I just had to be ready. And for me, it just happened to be, my life isn't as good as it could be. My health is going down the shitter, like, just things aren't good. I just need to go. And then as soon as I went, I didn't even know how to start. Um, I just wanted to find out why I feel the way I felt, because you always want to find out the why.
yeah,
I think the smartest thing my therapist ever said to kind of make me more comfortable and to kind of work through things faster is, um, we can't go back. The why isn't important, really. It's, what are you feeling? What's going on? And let's, work on tools to, fix or correct or manage whatever it is going on. Like we said,
mm,
yeah, it's likely my brother, but people are so fixated on the why am I feeling this way,
yes,
or why this, why that, rather than focusing on, okay, how am I feeling now? What am I going through? All that stuff. Let's figure out how to move forward. But people always want to go back. I wanted to go back. And the smartest thing my therapist said to me was, you know, that's not as important as, what are you feeling? What are you going through? What do we need to work on? Let's work on that. We can't go back. Like, once you find out why, it's not going to make a difference with how you're feeling now and what you're going through and all these things. So essentially, don't live in the past, live in the present, but you have to be willing to put your feelings up or thoughts or whatever up front and talk about with whatever's going on. But yeah, that's the smartest thing he said to me to kind of help me move forward.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So you might not have an answer to this, but if someone is like, yeah, I know I have this problem, I know I'm not ready, is there anything that someone can do to kind of get ready before they get to a point? Because you were saying like I felt so shitty about myself. It was like I reached the end of the rope and I just needed to do something. Is there anything that someone can do to get ready before they have
Um,
to go through and get to the end of the rope? Because no one likes
yeah.
being there.
I mean, my family would try to have like interventions, if you will, with me here and there. Like I
Mm.
had an uncle who was like, geez, Nicole, you put on some weight. And like, I guess that's their idea of intervention. I'm not sure. Um, but they've tried, I've had people say, you should go to therapy, you should do this or whatever. And to me, that's just not helpful.
No.
So I think just being there for someone, like not trying to make someone go or not try to force someone to go, because they're not going to go unless they're ready.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to lose weight unless you're ready. Like I didn't lose weight until I'm ready. People would tell me all the time, you're gaining weight, you're doing this, whatever, but that didn't matter to me. I just wasn't ready.
Mm.
So I guess the best thing someone can do is not try to talk someone into it or force it because it's just not going to help. Just be there for them and just let them know that if they need to talk, they can talk because they'll be more comfortable talking to a friend,
Mm.
mostly than a stranger. Because that's another thing with therapy. You don't know this person. Like some people are more comfortable talking to strangers because you have to be vulnerable and you don't want your closest people to know what's going on or what your
Yeah.
demons are, quote unquote. So some people find it easier to talk to strangers. I personally find it easier to talk to friends. I went to therapy because I actually needed to learn tools because I just didn't want to feel the way I was feeling anymore. But that could be something too. Like some people may be hesitant to go to therapy because they have a hard time being vulnerable to begin with. But now you are being asked to be vulnerable to a complete stranger who you
Mm.
don't know. And that's just an extra level of vulnerability and discomfort. Especially if you're struggling with most people are struggling with what I struggle with. So then you're going to have that fear of being judged by someone you don't know. You know what I mean? So you're
Yeah.
going to therapy for the thing that you're afraid the therapist is going to do and all that to you. So I guess the thing I would say is just be there for them. Just let them know that you're there if they want to talk or lend an ear, but you can't force someone to or talk someone into going to therapy or losing weight or changing anything in their life unless they're ready to do that.
Yeah, and do you think that there would have been anything that you could have done for yourself to get ready quicker than you did?
Mm, I mean, there's so many things I could have done if I could go back in time to change, but I don't know. I think I was just afraid. I don't really know what I was afraid of with therapy, but yeah, I guess just not letting fear take over my life because it really is a fear thing. Like
Mm.
if you don't want to be vulnerable, it's a fear of something. Like it's uncomfortable because you're afraid of something, some sort of reaction or something. I'm not a therapist, but there's something going on that's
Yeah.
causing you to feel that way. So I guess for me, it would have been to not let that fear or whatever hold me back because I was still scared to some level when I finally went. I don't know why I didn't just go, before because I still felt the same level of fear and vulnerability. So, yeah, I don't really know what I would have done differently other than just go sooner and just not let my fear take over because it's not accomplishing anything, obviously.
Yeah. Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
just knowing that a lot of people, especially with trauma, I think, are not really connected to their emotions or like any of that sort. So they might not even be aware of that there is fear. So just knowing that there might be fear in the background that is actually
Yeah.
preventing me from taking action might be helpful.
Yeah, I mean I've taken psychology classes in college, but I've always been a super smart kid, lazy when it comes to school, but smart.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I had like a lot of logical thinking, I
Yeah.
guess. Like, you know, I kind of connected it to I need therapy, you know, my health is shitty, I'm gaining weight, I need to drop the weight, I need therapy, whatever. I don't know why I kind of connected dots or how that kind of all unfolded. But yeah, there absolutely is a level of fear there. With any change, like, you know, I deal with weight
Mhm.
loss, there's a fear there because to lose weight, you got the fear of failure, right? Like, what if I try to lose weight and I don't and I fail? Like, that's what holds some people back. So
Oh
there's
yeah.
always some sort of, in my opinion, some level of fear or discomfort or something that holds people back. And I kind of like what you said during our last talk is you just have to be comfortable sitting with that, right? So
Yeah.
like have to be comfortable sitting with that. But yeah, it's there is some sort of underlying fear of discomfort that holds a lot of people back with whatever change that you're trying to achieve in your life or your behaviors or habits or whatever. I believe that there's some level of fear, discomfort, or something holding you back, whether it's failure, if you want to try to lose weight and you're afraid that you're not going to, whatever, that can hold people back. But I always think there's something holding someone back, and you just have to, you know, hit it head on and just break through.
Yeah. Right. So another question then. How do you think that the therapy kind of shook things loose for you when it comes to like your eating behaviors and losing weight? What
Mm.
was the change there, that the major change that helped you do that?
Yeah, so I went through cognitive behavioral therapy. I don't know all the therapies that are out there, but I did cognitive behavioral therapy, and it was this worksheet because my struggles were um not being good enough, just a negative outlook on life, just fear of abandonment, I guess, you know, from the loss of my brother. Like I never had my husband is actually my longest relationship. Like but but yeah, it's I never had relationships longer than 6 months because I never let people get close to me because the fear of abandonment and leaving, whatever. So I always pushed people away. It was all surface level, using my humor as, you know, as a defense mechanism, I guess, even though I'm a funny bastard, but my therapist said I use it as a defense
Hmm.
mechanism, right? To keep people away and not let them see the true me because I'm not vulnerable, whatever. So what therapy did for me, and most people feel this way. So what cognitive behavioral therapy did for me, which helped me in every single aspect of my life, from eating, which is huge, and then of course that helped with weight loss and all that other stuff, was you just put your thoughts on trial and you can Google worksheets. Literally consult Dr. Google and get like putting your thoughts on trial worksheets.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a funny exercise, but it seriously works. So it's you put your thought on paper, so not your feeling. So you have to distinguish between your thoughts and feelings, like not like I feel sad because Pim hates me. Like that's not it. Your thought could be um like I don't think Pim likes me, or Pim's having, you know, she's mad at me or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then you would kind of act as a defense attorney. So you defend that, be like, okay, um, Pim's mad at me because every morning we talk and you know, water cooler talk, joke around or whatever, but today we didn't do that. She didn't even say hi to me. And then you have the prosecutor, right, who's against the thought, and they'd be like, well, she could be having a bad day. It doesn't have to be about you. You did nothing wrong. You had, you know, you ended the day on a good day. Pim just woke up on the wrong side of the bed and she's being a douche today. So then you have the judge and the jury and all that. So that's kind of like how you walk through your thoughts and kind of put things in perspective, be like, well, that's not a valid thought, or that's not true, and all that stuff. So you're kind of proving your thought wrong, which for me showed me that I do have a very negative outlook on life, and I take the blame for pretty much everything. Um, and what I'm feeling for the most part, or you know, the thoughts I have for the most part aren't true. and I have a distorted way of thinking about things. So it kind of helped me put things in perspective and kind of work through those things like, oh, Pim didn't talk to me today. Well, she's probably just having a shitty day. It's not me. I didn't do anything wrong. And I'll just go up and say hi or whatever. And that's kind of what it helped me do. So now I have a more positive outlook on life. And once you open up those floodgates, like you're just happier and just things just jive. Like I've never felt that sense of relief and positive outlook on life before. Like I've
Yeah.
never I don't take the blame for anything. Like if you're having a crappy day, then you're having a crappy day. I didn't do anything. It's not my fault. But the old me would have been like, oh crap, what did I do? Or whatever. Like it's my fault. I did something wrong, or she doesn't like me. Why didn't she talk to me today? Is she not like me anymore? Like that's what I would do. That's a craziness I would do. But just having that worksheet, just going through that exercise and talking through it, like we would talk through my thoughts every week
Yeah.
and kind of work through it together. That was the most helpful thing. Because once you get your
Awesome.
mind right, everything else you can get right. But until you get your mind right, then nothing else is going to change.
Yeah.
That's what it showed
100%.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. I love
Yeah.
that. I haven't seen the worksheet, but it sounds very much like something that I do with a lot of clients because we have so many beliefs that are they are just beliefs that they're thoughts
Mhm.
that we thought so many times that we think that they're true and they really
Yeah.
aren't. And
Yeah.
as soon as we look at it, we see that, oh, okay, there's a lot of bullshit there. So
Mhm.
maybe we can start believing the opposite. So at
Yep.
the worst case, I say, okay, you can still keep believing that if you like, but you need to spend as much time thinking about the opposite. So you just give 50% of your time to the opposite thoughts and 50% to that. And that's how you can start changing and see that this isn't necessarily true. And then from that place, you're able to just choose what you actually want to believe.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, a whole new world opens up.
Yeah.
Like it's just insane. I've never felt this before. I should have done this a long time ago. But
Mm,
you should Google the putting your thoughts on trial
I will.
worksheet. Yeah, there's a few different versions of it, but it really is a good exercise that people
Mm,
just need to sit with their feelings or emotions, whatever thoughts, and actually like go through the exercise. But once you go through it a couple times, I just do it all mentally now and it happens automatically now,
yeah.
but at first I had to like sit and like work through those thoughts in my head when I would come up in those situations,
Yeah.
but now it happens more naturally. So over time, I mean, I may have to do this the rest of my life off and on, but it happens more naturally now. I don't have to sit and ponder like, does Pim hate me? What did I do something? Like I don't have to go through that mental jackery anymore. I can just like automatically go through. I was like, no, I didn't do anything wrong. It's not my fault. I don't know what's going on with her, but it's not me.
Yeah.
Like it's automatic now, but it takes a while to get there and kind of work through it. And you're gonna have quote unquote setbacks and all that stuff,
Yeah.
and you're going to feel like a failure because that's how I felt, and you may feel that
Hmm.
way, you may not, but I just know that it's a process. It's going to take time. You can't undo 30 plus years of behavior in a month or a week. It's going to take time, and you may have to sit with your thoughts and go through and just take a couple minutes to actually go through the exercise, and then over time, the more and more you do it, the more naturally and quickly you can go through it without it really affecting anything.
So many gold nuggets here. So for
Mm,
everyone listening, like take this to heart. What she's saying, you cannot change this within a week or probably a month. Probably take a lot longer. Although if you do deliberately practice every day as much as you can, it can be fairly quick. But what you're doing is what I'm always talking about. You're changing the neurological pathways in your brain, and that takes time. At the same time as you don't fuel the old pathways anymore, so they will kind of prune away, and you're less likely to just choose them out of habit. And this is the process. It just takes time. So failure doesn't mean that it's not working. It's just the only thing that it means is that you chose the old pathway. It's not more complicated than that. And
yeah.
just know it's not about you. It's about the process. It will take time. So thank you for saying that as well. You have
You're
said so
welcome.
many good things, and it's just so good to hear it. Hear you express it from a different point of view that my listeners probably haven't heard it before, because we tend to talk in a specific way, and I
Mhm.
really appreciate the way that you're talking about it, because that might resonate with some people on a whole different level than what I have ever been able to express. So I'm very grateful for you mentioning those things. I think it's so important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I truly hope this helps people because it's a serious thing that people are going through, and a lot of times they can feel alone, and just hearing, someone who went through it just a few years ago,
Mm,
like you're not alone, and it's never too late. I just grieved, the loss of my brother like maybe 5 years, like 4 years ago,
yeah,
and he died when I was 11. So grief doesn't have a time. And that's what my mom, taught me is there's no time limit on grief. It's never too late to grieve or go through whatever it is or confront whatever it is that may have happened when you're a child. It's never too late, but it's definitely better to confront it than never confront it. Because I'm
yeah,
grateful I confronted it when I did, because I wouldn't be where I am today and as happy as I am today. So grief has no time limit. That's the nugget my mom gave me and kind of helped me put things in perspective, because I felt like like there was something wrong with me. Like I waited, almost 30 years to grieve, and I thought there was something wrong with me. And that was what she imparted on me, is grief has no time. It happens when it's meant to happen.
yeah, 100%. So where in your journey are you now? Like how confident are you that you know exactly how to handle the food moving forward? Still have doubts that you're working through? What's happening?
I got it, dude. No,
I
it's
got it.
it's I got it. Um, yeah, I still have cravings here and there, like like I wanted ice cream today, and I'm talking to Pam, like, yeah, have ice cream. That's no, it's a bad idea. No, every once in a while I have cravings, and I think I'm still trying to get rid of the cravings from vacation,
Mm,
because it was literally a week of drinking sugary drinks and eating stuff, and I've only been back for like, this is week 3, so, and I'm still trying to not eat those things. So I would say I'm like 90% there. Like I feel like I'm able to control it better. Like my urges, I feel like they're slowly starting to go away the more and more consistent I am with, my way of eating, which is
yeah,
primarily animal based. But I still have the cravings like tonight. It's just the urges really aren't as strong anymore. Like I don't they were tonight. But typically within the last week or two, they haven't been as strong. I'm able to control it. I don't sit on the couch and have to like hold on to the couch so I don't get up and go to the kitchen. So I would say I'm probably about 90% back on track with the cravings at bay, but I don't know that I'll ever not think about it. I don't know that I'll ever, and who knows, I might, but I don't know that I'll ever not think about it. And I'm curious if I'm able to, because normally I can have dark chocolate, like a dark chocolate nugget, and just have one and then stay away. But the second I incorporate something like the ice cream or something that's more sugary, that's where the problems come in. So if I'm learning what has more control over me than not these last couple weeks, that I didn't know before. So if I have something that's not, like if I have something that's more savory, so dark chocolate is more savory, I can manage that better. I can stop at one or two like little dark chocolate nuggets and not crave or want more. But the second I switch to like a milk chocolate or something that's more sugary or creamy, that's what triggers my cravings more. So that I didn't realize until the last couple weeks. So I guess that's a new discovery on the journey back to to eating better and trying to get off the sugar, is I'm noticing that certain certain types of chocolate have more an effect on me than others, and I didn't
yeah,
realize that before.
yeah. I mean that's good information, but from my from my experience, I think that you're going to realize when you get a little bit further along the journey that you might be able to actually have some ice cream or something if you want to, and not feel those urges to just continue eating and eating and eating. I think
I
it's
hope
a
so.
time thing, and you just have to let your brain get, on board with the concept, and this is what we're doing. So I just want to, encourage you to continue doing what you're doing and keep keep the faith. I think it will happen for you too.
Yeah, I do love my mint chocolate chip ice cream.
Yeah. I mean, so do I, but now it's just words. It doesn't have that emotional connection anymore. It's like my favorite was always Ben and Jerry's cookie dough ice cream, and I'm like, oh, that's so nice. But when I really think about it, I'm like, I don't feel like I even want it. But my brain still thinks that that is the best thing on earth.
That's true.
It's,
Probably is.
yeah. Okay, so before we are wrapping this up, do you have any last words of advice for anyone who might be in a similar situation to you? Something maybe that you wish that you had done a little bit differently, or anything that might help them?
Yeah, talk about your feelings. Like I never talked about my feelings ever, and now I'll talk anyone's ear off about my feelings. I kind of went to the other extreme. I kind of went to not talking to talking, but yeah, uh, that's something I wish I would have done differently. Is whenever someone asked if I'm okay, when you can clearly see on my face I wasn't okay or something was wrong, I never talked about it. I just said I'm okay. I said, yeah, I'm fine. So I would say if someone asks you a question, like how's your day going? Or if everything's okay and it's really not, answer honestly. They ask the question, answer honestly. If things aren't okay, then say no, I'm not okay. Don't try to fake it and hide your feelings because things good things won't come of that, only bad or negative things. So I would say just be comfortable admitting that you're not okay or you're having a bad day or something's not right because that's something I wish I would have done sooner or started doing. Now, if someone says, "Hey, good morning," I'd be like, "No, it's not," or whatever. If I'm having a bad day, or someone says, "Hi, how are you?" They always expect a good and move on. But if I'm not, then I'll just say, "No, I'm having a crappy day," or whatever. So just be comfortable, like being honest. If someone asks you a question, answer honestly. And if you don't feel comfortable talking to them, talk to a friend. But that would be the last thing I would say, or something that I think your listeners should take to heart is just
Yeah,
be okay admitting that you're not okay. Because if I would have done that sooner, then I would have been where I am now sooner.
awesome. I also want to ask you, you mentioned that you help people lose weight. So who is it that you're helping, and how do you help them?
Yeah, so I typically work with individuals over 40 who need to lose 50 to 100 plus pounds. So I do deal a lot with diabetes and type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes, and of course, obesity. I also work a lot with the senior population. But yeah, so I most of my clients are diabetic, so I do try to get them low carb or as low carb as I can get them to go. And I just make little changes. I just take how they're eating and just modify it. So I don't put them
Nice.
on carnivore, keto, paleo, any particular eating plan. I do simple things
Yeah,
like if you're going to have a cheeseburger, eat half the bun instead of the whole bun. Maybe have, a handful of fries instead of a basket of fries. Like I just make little adjustments and modifications like that. Um, and my type 2 diabetic clients, a lot of them are almost out of type 2 just by doing simple things like that. Of course, I would want them to drop lower on the carbs, but you're not going to get someone eating almost 300 grams down to below 50. So I just try to make little adjustments like that, like little cuts where over time will make a difference, and then
yeah,
hopefully they'll start to see the benefits, and then they want to drop a little further. But that's kind of how I like working with people because that's more sustainable and manageable, and it's easier for them to manage in their life to where you're not adding all this extra stress by turning their lifestyle upside down all at once. So I just make little changes.
yeah. Awesome. So where can people
Yeah.
find you if they want to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so my website is darkhorse-nutrition.com, and my YouTube, I guess the at sign, I guess they use the at thing,
Hmm.
and that's at former fat girl on YouTube. Yeah, so check out my website, my email address and phone numbers on my website.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for everyone who's watching, thinking, oh, I don't really know where to start, just want to pitch for my free course that I have, which is called Food Freedom Foundations, where I'll teach you everything that you need to know about how to manage your emotions, how to sit through a craving so that you're actually able to change the wiring in your brain. So if you want to sign up for that one, you can go to the description. I will have all my links there. I will have all Nicole's links there, so you can just go and click on whatever you need. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next week. Bye.
Bye.